15 specialists stood defeated around billionaire Maxwell Harrington's hospital bed as his organs shut down one by one. Nobody noticed when janitor Marcus Washington slipped his 3-year-old son Elijah into the room. "I know what's killing him," the boy whispered. "The same thing that killed my mother." Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible but knew you had something important to contribute. Now let's discover how one overlooked boy changed everything. Elijah Johnson wasn't like other 13-year-old boys in South Chicago. While his classmates played video games and basketball after school, Elijah spent his evenings poring over medical journals and research notes that once belonged to his mother. His father, Marcus Johnson, worked night shifts as a security guard at Harrington Memorial Hospital, named after the billionaire family that owned the sprawling medical complex. Their small 2-bedroom apartment in the neglected South Side was filled with stacks of medical texts, scientific journals, and notebooks filled with Elijah's meticulous handwriting. Marcus worried about his son's obsession, but he understood its origin. 3 years ago, Elijah's mother, Dr. Amara Johnson, had been a promising researcher at Harrington Pharmaceuticals. Her work on rare autoimmune disorders had been groundbreaking until her mysterious dismissal. 6 months after losing her position, she died from a disease that puzzled every doctor who examined her. Her symptoms progressed rapidly, her organs failing one after another while specialists scratched their heads. Elijah was only 10 when he sat beside her hospital bed watching helplessly as she slipped away. That day, something changed in the boy. His already sharp mind developed an extraordinary ability to recognize patterns, to connect dots that others missed. He began studying his mother's research notes, obsessively memorizing thousands of symptoms and medical conditions. Marcus didn't have the heart to stop him. If this was how his son processed grief, who was he to interfere? The night everything changed began like any other. Marcus kissed his sleeping son's forehead before heading to his shift. "Dad, wake me when you get home," Elijah mumbled. "I need to tell you something important," Marcus smiled. His son was always discovering important medical breakthroughs in his mother's notes. "Sure thing, buddy," he promised, though they both knew he'd let the boy sleep. 3 hours into his shift, Marcus noticed unusual activity in the hospital's private wing. Doctors rushed in and out, nurses moved with urgent purpose, and administrators appeared despite the late hour. Through fragments of overheard conversations, Marcus pieced together what was happening. Maxwell Harrington III, tech billionaire, and owner of Harrington Pharmaceuticals, had been rushed to his private hospital wing with mysterious symptoms. 15 specialists from around the world were being flown in on private jets. Something was seriously wrong. During his break, Marcus overheard 2 doctors discussing Harrington's case in hushed tones by the coffee machine. "His kidneys are failing now too," said one, a tall woman with a British accent. "And the neurological symptoms are worsening." "I've never seen anything like it," replied her colleague. "It's almost like his immune system is attacking every organ simultaneously." Marcus froze his coffee, forgotten. The symptoms they described sounded eerily similar to what had killed Amara. He remained motionless as the doctors continued their conversation. "Blood work shows elevated markers that don't match any known condition," said the British doctor. "And he's not responding to any treatments. At this rate, he has maybe 48 hours, said her colleague grimly. As they walked away, Marcus felt his heart pounding. Could it be the same condition that took Amara? Should he speak up? The memory of his wife's final days flashed before his eyes, followed by the memory of Maxwell Harrington himself. Marcus had been working security at Harrington Pharmaceuticals when Amara was dismissed. He'd seen Harrington personally escort his wife from the building. Her research confiscated her reputation in tatters. Harrington had canceled Amara's research grant after she questioned the company's drug testing procedures. The billionaire had personally seen to it that she was discredited in the medical community. Marcus had begged her to fight back legally, but Amara refused. "They'll just bury us in paperwork and legal fees," she'd said. "We can't win against people like that." 6 months later, she was gone. And now Harrington was dying with symptoms that matched Amara's. It felt like cosmic justice, yet something in Marcus resisted the satisfaction of watching the man suffer. Amara wouldn't have wanted that. She had dedicated her life to saving people regardless of who they were. As his shift ended, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going straight home, he called Mrs. Henderson, their elderly neighbor who sometimes watched Elijah. "I need to bring my son to work for a little while," he told her. "It's important." 20 minutes later, Elijah was sitting beside his father in the security office, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Dad, what's going on?" The boy looked confused but alert. "Remember how you said you needed to tell me something important?" Marcus asked. "I think I need to hear it now." Elijah sat in the hospital cafeteria, a worn medical journal open before him. His father had explained the situation during the drive over, and now the boy's mind was racing with possibilities. "Stay here while I finish my rounds," Marcus had instructed. "Don't draw attention to yourself." For Elijah, being invisible was nothing new. At school, teachers often overlooked his raised hand, choosing white students instead. In stores, security guards followed him while ignoring other customers. Even at his mother's funeral, people had spoken around him as if he couldn't understand their words. Being invisible had its advantages, though. People spoke freely when they thought no one was listening, especially not a small black boy with serious eyes. 2 doctors entered the cafeteria, their scrubs marking them as part of the emergency team. They grabbed coffee and sat at a nearby table, completely ignoring Elijah's presence. "His white blood cell count is through the roof," said the older doctor, a gray-haired man with thick glasses. "And the pattern of organ failure is unlike anything I've seen." "Could it be an unknown pathogen?" asked his younger colleague. "Tests are negative for all known infectious agents," said the older doctor, "and the autoantibodies present don't match any cataloged autoimmune disorder." Elijah's pulse quickened. He carefully turned the page of his journal, straining to hear more. "What about heavy metal poisoning?" suggested the younger doctor. "Negative," sighed his colleague. "We've tested for everything." The team is stumped. As they continued discussing symptoms, Elijah's mind raced through his mental catalog of rare diseases. The combination they described was unusual, but not unfamiliar. He had read about similar cases in his mother's research notes. After the doctors left, Elijah slipped out of the cafeteria and made his way toward the private wing. Hospital staff rushed past him without a glance. Their attention focused on more important matters than a skinny boy in oversized clothes. He positioned himself on a bench with a clear view of the nurses' station where charts and test results were being reviewed. As he watched, a tall black woman in a white coat approached the station. Her ID badge identified her as Dr. Victoria Spencer, Chief of Medicine. The resident handed her a tablet, and her expression darkened as she scrolled through the information. "These results don't make sense," she muttered. "Run them again." Elijah's heart pounded. He recognized the pattern she was describing. It matched a syndrome his mother had documented, one so rare it had never been officially classified. Gathering his courage, he approached Dr. Spencer. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I think it might be Gilchrist Nakamura syndrome." Dr. Spencer looked down, noticing him for the first time. Her eyebrows rose in surprise, then lowered in annoyance. "What are you doing here?" "This is a restricted area. My dad works security," Elijah explained. "But I know about this disease. My mom was researching it before she died." "The symptoms match." Dr. Spencer's expression hardened. "Go play somewhere else, kid. We don't have time for this." She turned away dismissively, not even bothering to ask his name or how he knew about a syndrome so rare it wasn't in standard medical textbooks. A young black resident who had witnessed the interaction gave Elijah a sympathetic look, but said nothing, clearly unwilling to jeopardize his position. Elijah returned to the bench, his face burning with humiliation, but his determination unshaken. If they wouldn't listen to him directly, he needed evidence. The hospital's medical library was on the 3rd floor. Slipping into an elevator, Elijah pressed the button, ignoring the curious glances from staff members. In the library, he quickly located journals related to autoimmune disorders, searching for anything that might support his theory. He was so absorbed in his research that he didn't notice the security guard approaching until a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. "What are you doing in here?" the guard demanded. "This area is for medical personnel only. I'm researching something important, Elijah tried to explain. It could help a patient. The guard's grip tightened. Yeah, right. Come on, troublemaker. Elijah was roughly escorted out of the library, the guard's fingers digging painfully into his arm. I caught this one messing around in the medical library, the guard announced to the security supervisor, a middle-aged white man with a permanent scowl. Isn't that Marcus Johnson's kid? The supervisor's scowl deepened. Call Johnson up here, now. 10 minutes later, Marcus arrived, his expression, a mix of concern and apprehension. Mr. Johnson, the supervisor, began, your son was caught in restricted areas. This is completely unacceptable. Sir, I can explain, Marcus started. I don't want explanations, the supervisor cut him off. I want you to get that strange kid of yours out of here. If he causes any more disruptions, you can start looking for another job. The threat hung in the air, its implications clear. As a black security guard with a high school education, Marcus would struggle to find comparable employment. His son's actions could cost them their livelihood, their apartment, everything. Yes, sir, Marcus said quietly. It won't happen again. As they walked toward the exit, Elijah looked up at his father's eyes, burning with frustration. Dad, they're not listening. Mr. Harrington has the same thing that killed Mom. I'm sure of it. Marcus glanced around nervously. Elijah, we can't get involved in this. These people, they don't see us. To them, we're just the help. But someone will die if we don't do something. Elijah insisted. Just like Mom died. The words hung between them heavy with unspoken grief and responsibility. Marcus sighed, the weight of the decision visible in the slump of his shoulders. Tell me everything on the drive home, he said finally. Everything you know about this disease. What deadly secret connects a billionaire's illness to the death of a brilliant researcher 3 years ago? And what price might a father and son pay for revealing the truth? Elijah sat at their kitchen table, surrounded by his mother's journals, the pages illuminated by a single lamp in their modest apartment. It's called Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome, he explained, pointing to his mother's neat handwriting. Mom was researching it before they fired her. It's an autoimmune disorder that attacks multiple organ systems simultaneously. Marcus leaned over his son's shoulder, studying the complex medical terminology that looked like a foreign language to him. And you're sure this is what Harrington has? Elijah nodded emphatically. The symptoms match perfectly. Rapid onset cascading organ failure, neurological complications, specific blood markers. It's rare, but Mom found a pattern. She was developing a treatment when Harrington Pharmaceuticals shut down her research. Marcus ran a hand over his face, remembering those dark days. Why would they stop research on something so important? Mom's notes say the treatment wouldn't be profitable enough, Elijah said bitterly. The syndrome is too rare, and the treatment protocol would be complex and expensive to produce. But Mom thought it could lead to breakthroughs for more common autoimmune disorders, too. Marcus paced the small kitchen, his mind racing. If Elijah was right, Harrington was being killed by the very disease his company had refused to treat. The irony was staggering, but it didn't change the fact that a man was dying. We need to try again, he said finally. We need proof they can't ignore. Elijah's eyes lit up. If I could see his latest test results, I could confirm it. Marcus shook his head. That's impossible. Those records are highly restricted. But even as he spoke, he remembered the young black resident who had witnessed Elijah's dismissal by Dr. Spencer. Perhaps not everyone at the hospital was willing to ignore a child's insights. The next night, Marcus approached Dr. James Carter in the hospital cafeteria. The young doctor was alone reviewing charts while picking at a salad. "Excuse me, Dr. Carter, I'm Marcus Johnson, Elijah's father." Dr. Carter looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "The security guard, right? Your son tried to talk to Dr. Spencer yesterday about Harrington's case." "Yes," Marcus said, lowering his voice. "My son believes Mr. Harrington has Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome. It's what killed his mother 3 years ago." Dr. Carter's eyebrows rose. "That's an extremely rare condition. How would your son know about it?" His mother was Dr. Amara Johnson. She was researching the syndrome at Harrington Pharmaceuticals before they terminated her position. The doctor's expression changed. "Wait, Dr. Amara Johnson. I read her paper on autoimmune cascades during my residency. Her work was groundbreaking. Marcus nodded, a surge of pride momentarily displacing his anxiety. That's my wife. She died 6 months after Harrington fired her, from the same syndrome. Dr. Carter's face softened with understanding. I'm sorry for your loss. But how can you be sure about Mr. Harrington's diagnosis? Elijah has been studying his mother's research for 3 years. He recognizes the pattern, but he needs to see the latest test results to confirm. Dr. Carter hesitated, conflict evident on his face. What you're asking could cost me my career. What if he's right? Marcus pressed. What if you could save a life? The young doctor was silent for a long moment. Meet me at the south entrance in 20 minutes, he finally said. And bring your son. True to his word, Dr. Carter was waiting when Marcus returned with Elijah. He led them to a small consultation room and produced a tablet with Harrington's latest results. You have 5 minutes, he said, handing it to Elijah. That's all I can risk. Elijah's fingers flew across the screen, his eyes scanning the numbers with remarkable speed. There, he said, pointing to a specific marker. MHC2 antibody variants and elevated IL-17. It's being masked by the treatments they're giving him, but it's there. Dr. Carter leaned in, studying the results. That's actually possible. The current treatments could be suppressing these markers while making the underlying condition worse. They need to stop all current treatments and start a specific protocol, Elijah explained, pulling out his mother's journal. Mom documented the entire process here. Dr. Carter's expression was a mix of awe and professional skepticism. This is far beyond standard treatment protocols. We'd need senior approval, and frankly, no one's going to listen to. He trailed off, but the implication was clear. No one would listen to a black security guard and his teenage son. We have to try, Marcus insisted. Talk to your supervisor. Show them the evidence. The next day, Marcus approached his own supervisor, hoping for support in reaching Dr. Spencer. Sir, I know this sounds unusual, but my son has identified Mr. Harrington's condition. We need to speak with the medical team. The supervisor's laugh was short and dismissive. Johnson, stick to security and leave medicine to the real doctors. Those specialists flew in from around the world. You think they're going to listen to your kid? His tone hardened. I warned you about causing trouble. One more incident and you're done here. That evening, Marcus and Elijah watched the hospital monitors from the security office. Harrington's vitals were deteriorating rapidly. According to Dr. Carter, the specialist now gave him less than 48 hours to live. We need a new plan, Marcus said. We need to put together something they can't ignore. Working through the night, Elijah created a detailed presentation using his mother's research notes and current medical literature. The resulting document was meticulous, correlating Harrington's symptoms with known cases of Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome and outlining a potential treatment protocol. Now we just need someone who will actually look at it, Marcus said grimly. Someone with enough influence to make them listen. As dawn broke, news spread through the hospital. Rebecca Harrington, the billionaire's daughter and company vice president, had arrived from Europe. Her father's condition was now critical. Perhaps she was their only hope. Do you think the hospital staff was right to dismiss Elijah's insights because of his age and race? Type 1 in the comments if you believe expertise can come from unexpected sources, or 2 if you think medical decisions should only be made by credentialed professionals. Like and subscribe if you've ever had an important idea dismissed without consideration. Now, with Harrington's condition worsening by the hour, will Marcus and Elijah find a way to be heard? Or will history repeat itself, as another life is lost to a treatable condition? Morning light filtered through the hospital windows as Marcus and Elijah approached the information desk. We need to speak with Dr. Spencer, Marcus stated firmly. It's regarding Maxwell Harrington's case. The receptionist, a middle-aged white woman, didn't bother looking up from her computer. Patient information is confidential. If you're not family, you'll need to leave. This is urgent, Marcus pressed. We have information that could save his life. Now the woman did look up, her eyes narrowing, as she took in the security guard uniform and the young boy beside him. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the desk. Medical matters are handled by medical staff. But we've identified his condition," Elijah interjected. "It's Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome. The current treatments are making it worse." The receptionist's expression hardened. "Security to the main lobby," she said into her phone. Within minutes, 2 security guards approached. Marcus recognized them as colleagues from different shifts. "Marcus, what's going on?" asked one, looking uncomfortable. "These 2 are causing a disruption," the receptionist explained before Marcus could speak. "They need to be escorted out." "Dave, wait," Marcus said to his colleague. "My son has identified Mr. Harrington's condition. We're trying to help." Dave shifted awkwardly. "Look, Marcus, I'm just following orders. The administrators have labeled you as nuisances. There's talk of a restraining order if you don't back off." The second guard, less familiar with Marcus, was more direct. "Move along now, or we'll have to report this incident." As they were led away, Elijah's shoulders slumped in defeat. "They won't even listen," he whispered. "Mom died because no one would listen, and now it's happening again." Marcus squeezed his son's shoulder. "We're not giving up. We just need to find another way in." They retreated to a cafe across from the hospital where Marcus called Dr. Carter. "They won't let us near the place," he explained. "Is there anything you can do?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I've been reviewing Elijah's research," Dr. Carter said finally. "He's right about the diagnosis. I tried presenting it to the team, but Dr. Spencer shut me down immediately." He lowered his voice. She said, "My judgment was compromised by cultural solidarity. Can you believe that? As if I'd risk a patient's life based on skin color." Marcus winced. He'd heard similar coded language throughout his career. "So what now?" Harrington's daughter arrived last night, Dr. Carter said. "She's desperate for answers. The specialists are just giving her the runaround at this point." "Can you get us to her?" Marcus asked. Dr. Carter's laugh was bitter. "They've restricted my access to the private wing after my unprofessional suggestion this morning. But your security. You have access to the whole building." Marcus considered this. His key card would get him into most areas, including the private family room where Rebecca Harrington was likely stationed. It was risky. He'd certainly lose his job. But with a life in the balance, did that really matter? "We'll find a way," he told Dr. Carter. "Just be ready if we succeed." Back at the hospital, Marcus clocked in for his shift as usual. He instructed Elijah to wait by the service entrance until he texted. Then, during the shift change, when the hallways were busiest, he made his move. Navigating through back corridors and service elevators, Marcus avoided the main security checkpoints. His uniform and familiar face allowed him to move without suspicion until he reached the private wing. There he swiped his card and held his breath. The light flashed green. Inside, he quickly located the private family room. Taking a deep breath, he knocked. The woman who opened the door had Harrington's sharp blue eyes, though hers were rimmed with red from crying. "Miss Harrington, I'm Marcus Johnson, hospital security. I need to speak with you about your father's condition." Rebecca Harrington's expression immediately turned guarded. "Security, is there a problem?" "Not with security, no. But I believe I know what's wrong with your father." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, my son has identified your father's condition as Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome. It's extremely rare, but my late wife was researching it before her death." Rebecca's posture stiffened. "I don't understand. If you have medical information, why are you here instead of the doctors?" "Because they won't listen to us." The words hung in the air, their implication clear. Rebecca studied him, skepticism evident in her expression. "Let me get this straight. You, a security guard, and your son claim to know more than 15 specialists flown in from around the world." Her tone was condescending, dismissive. "You must think I'm desperate enough to believe anyone at this point." "My wife was Dr. Amara Johnson," Marcus said quietly. "She worked for your father's company until 3 years ago." Recognition flickered across Rebecca's face. "The researcher who was terminated for falsifying data. What does that have to do with anything?" Marcus fought to keep his voice level. "She didn't falsify anything. She was developing a treatment for Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome when her funding was cut. 6 months later, she died from the same condition, now killing your father." Rebecca's expression shifted slightly. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation, it's a fact. And my son has spent 3 years studying his mother's research. He recognized the pattern in your father's symptoms. Your son, how old is he? 13. But he understands this syndrome better than anyone alive. Rebecca laughed, but it held no humor. You expect me to trust the medical opinion of a 13-year-old boy based on research that was deemed fraudulent. I expect you to want all possible information when your father is dying, and his doctors have no answers, Marcus countered. Give us 5 minutes with the medical team. That's all we ask. Rebecca paced the room, conflict evident on her face. Finally, she turned to him. My father has less than 24 hours, according to the latest prognosis. If you're wasting my time, we're not. 5 minutes, she conceded. But I should warn you, my father's doctors don't take kindly to outside interference, especially from people like you. The implication hung in the air between them. Marcus texted Elijah, directing him to the service elevator. Minutes later, father and son stood together outside the conference room where Harrington's medical team was assembled. Elijah clutched his mother's journal and the presentation he'd prepared. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were determined. Remember what Mom always said, Marcus whispered, straightening his son's collar. Your worth isn't determined by how others see you. Elijah nodded, squaring his shoulders. I know what I know, Dad. Rebecca approached, eyeing Elijah with surprise. This is your son. He's just a child. I'm Elijah Johnson, the boy said, extending his hand with a composure that belied his age, and I believe I can help save your father. Rebecca didn't take his hand. Instead, she opened the conference room door. Gentlemen, ladies, she announced to the assembled specialists. These two have requested 5 minutes of your time. They believe they've identified my father's condition. The room fell silent, as all eyes turned to the black security guard and his young son standing in the doorway. The atmosphere instantly chilled skepticism and dismissal written across 15 faces. Dr. Spencer rose from her seat, her expression thunderous. Miss Harrington, with all due respect, we don't have time for this nonsense. The conference room felt smaller than it was, 15 pairs of eyes boring into Marcus and Elijah as they stood before the assembled medical experts. Dr. Spencer's voice cut through the tense silence. Miss Harrington, we are in the middle of a critical discussion about your father's care. This is highly irregular and inappropriate. Rebecca's face betrayed her own doubts, but she gestured to the front of the room. 5 minutes as agreed. Then we'll continue our discussion. Elijah stepped forward, his small frame dwarfed by the imposing conference table. He placed his materials on the table and looked up at the specialists, meeting their stares with remarkable composure. My name is Elijah Johnson. My mother was Dr. Amara Johnson, a researcher at Harrington Pharmaceuticals until 3 years ago. I believe Mr. Harrington is suffering from Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome, the same condition that killed my mother. A derisive snort came from one of the doctors, a gray-haired man with wire-rimmed glasses. Gilchrist-Nakamura isn't even a recognized syndrome. It's theoretical at best. It's real, Elijah insisted, opening his presentation. My mother documented 7 cases before her research was terminated. The syndrome presents as a cascading autoimmune response that targets multiple organ systems simultaneously. Dr. Spencer cut in sharply. We're familiar with the theoretical model. It's been debunked by peer review. It hasn't been debunked, Elijah countered, his voice steady. It was deliberately suppressed because the treatment protocol wouldn't be profitable enough to justify development costs. The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief and dismissal. I've heard enough of this conspiracy nonsense, said a tall Asian doctor, rising from his seat. Miss Harrington, we're wasting precious time. Just listen to what he has to say, Marcus interjected, earning him glares from around the table. My son has spent years studying this syndrome. And what qualifies him to interpret complex medical data? Asked a woman with a German accent. The fact that his mother was a researcher. That's hardly a transferable skill set. I've memorized every detail of my mother's research, Elijah explained, flipping through his presentation. Mr. Harrington's symptoms match the progression pattern exactly. The elevated MHC2 antibody variants, the specific interleukin markers, the timing of organ involvement, it all fits. Doctor, Spencer leafed through the materials with obvious skepticism. This is just internet research cobbled together by a child. There's nothing here that we haven't already considered and dismissed. Have you considered that your current treatments are actually accelerating the progression? Elijah asked, pointing to a specific chart. The immunosuppressants you're using are targeting the wrong pathway. They're suppressing the symptoms while allowing the underlying cascade to continue unchecked. A younger doctor seated near the back leaned forward with interest. That's actually a plausible mechanism. We've seen paradoxical responses to immunosuppression before, Doctor. Spencer shot him a withering look. Dr. Patel, please don't encourage this. She turned back to Elijah, her voice dripping with condescension. Young man, while your interest in medicine is commendable, this is not a science fair project. We are dealing with a critically ill patient and complex medical science that takes years of training to understand. My mother understood it, Elijah said quietly. And she died because no one would listen to her either. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Dr. Carter, who had slipped in during the presentation, spoke up from the doorway. I've reviewed Elijah's materials. His analysis is sound, and his proposed mechanism explains why Mr. Harrington is deteriorating despite our interventions. Dr. Spencer's face hardened. Dr. Carter, your involvement is inappropriate and unprofessional. You were explicitly instructed to distance yourself from this situation. From what potentially life-saving information, Dr. Carter challenged, because it comes from an unexpected source. Another specialist, a heavy-set man with a southern accent, shook his head dismissively. I think we've humored this enough. How is the son of a security guard qualified to contradict 15 board-certified specialists? The words hung in the air, their implicit bias unmistakable. Marcus stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled anger. My son has spent every day for 3 years studying this syndrome. He's not guessing or theorizing. He's presenting factual information that you're refusing to consider because of who he is and how old he is. This is preposterous, Dr. Spencer declared. We will not alter our treatment plan based on the amateur research of a child regardless of whose son he is. She turned to the group. I move that we dismiss this interruption and return to evidence-based medicine. All in favor, hands rose around the table, 14 specialists voting to dismiss Elijah's diagnosis without further consideration. Only Dr. Carter kept his hand down, standing firm despite the professional risk. Rebecca, who had been watching silently from the corner, looked troubled. Are you certain you've explored every possibility? She asked the specialists. My father is dying. Shouldn't we consider all options, Miss Harrington, Doctor? Spencer said, with forced patience, I understand your desperation, but this is not how medicine works. We cannot implement untested treatments based on a child's research project. Before Rebecca could respond, alarms blared from the adjacent room. The cardiac monitor by the door showed Harrington's heart rate plummeting. Code blue, someone shouted, and the room erupted into action. The specialists rushed toward Harrington's suite, leaving Marcus, Elijah, and Rebecca behind in the sudden chaos. As the doctors and nurses worked frantically to stabilize, the billionaire Elijah slipped through the confusion and approached Harrington's bedside. In the chaos, no one noticed the small boy studying the unconscious man's skin with intense concentration. Marcus watched nervously from the doorway, ready to pull his son back if anyone noticed. After several tense minutes, the medical team stabilized Harrington's condition, though the monitors showed his vital signs were weaker than before. As the specialists regrouped, discussing adjustments to the treatment plan, Elijah made his way back to his father. Dad, he whispered urgently, I saw it. The petechial rash with the specific pattern on his wrists and neck. It's identical to what Mom had in her final stage. There's no doubt now, it's Gilchrist Nakamura. Marcus nodded, feeling a strange mix of vindication and despair. They had the final confirmation they needed, but still no way to make the specialists listen. Rebecca approached them as they stood in the hallway, her expression unreadable. That was my father's 3rd cardiac episode in 12 hours, she said quietly. They're running out of options. She studied Elijah with new interest. "You really believe you know what's killing him?" Elijah met her gaze. "I don't believe it. I know it. And I know how to treat it. But no one will listen." Rebecca looked from the boy to the conference room where the specialists were reconvening. Her father was dying, his renowned doctors were failing, and her only hope might be the determined child standing before her. "Make me understand," she said finally. "Explain it to me as if I were one of them." And so, in the sterile hospital hallway, a 13-year-old boy began to educate a pharmaceutical executive about the disease that had claimed his mother and now threatened her father's life. Can a single test change the course of a man's fate? Will those in power finally recognize the truth when they see it? And how far will one boy go to prove what he knows in his heart? The hospital corridors were quiet in the pre-dawn hours, as Dr. Carter met Marcus and Elijah in the basement near the laboratory. "Miss Harrington is keeping the specialists busy with questions," he explained. "That gives us maybe 30 minutes to run this test undetected." Elijah clutched the small cooler containing a fresh blood sample from Harrington, obtained by Dr. Carter during the latest round of routine tests. "We need to isolate the specific antibody complexes," he explained, his voice hushed but urgent. "The standard panels won't detect them because they're masked by the current treatments." Dr. Carter nodded, swiping his badge to access the laboratory. "If you're right about this, Elijah, you'll have saved a life. If you're wrong—" "I'm not wrong," Elijah said with quiet certainty. "Mom documented everything. I know what to look for." The laboratory was state-of-the-art, a stark contrast to the outdated equipment in the public hospital where Amara had died. Marcus stood guard by the door while Elijah and Dr. Carter worked the boy, directing the doctor with surprising authority. "We need to use an immunoprecipitation technique to isolate the antibody complexes," Elijah instructed. "Then, look for the specific binding pattern with the MHC2 receptors." Dr. Carter followed the boy's directions, impressed by his detailed knowledge of complex laboratory procedures. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked as they waited for the centrifuge to complete its cycle. "From Mom's journals," Elijah replied. "She recorded everything in detail. I've read them so many times I have them memorized." As they worked, Marcus noticed a blinking light on a nearby computer. "What's that?" he asked, pointing. Dr. Carter frowned. "It's accessing the security camera archives." He moved to the terminal, typing rapidly. "Someone's remotely viewing footage from 3 years ago. From the research wing at Harrington Pharmaceuticals." The three exchanged glances, then gathered around the monitor. The footage showed a laboratory similar to the one they were in. 2 men in expensive suits were removing files from cabinets and hard drives from computers. The timestamp indicated it was the day before Amara Johnson's dismissal. "That's Richard Whitman," Marcus said, recognizing Harrington's chief operating officer. "And that's my wife's research lab." They were taking her files before they even fired her. They knew, Elijah whispered. They knew her research was valuable and they wanted to control it. Dr. Carter's expression darkened. "We need to save this footage." He quickly copied the files to a secure drive. "But right now, let's focus on the test. We're running out of time." The final results appeared on the screen just as they heard voices approaching the laboratory. "Positive, Doctor." Carter confirmed, looking at Elijah with newfound respect. "You were right. It's Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome, exactly as you described." They barely had time to save the results before the laboratory door opened. Rebecca Harrington stood there, accompanied by Dr. Spencer and 2 security guards. "What is the meaning of this?" Dr. Spencer demanded, her face flushed with anger. "Unauthorized testing. Accessing restricted areas. This is grounds for immediate termination and possible criminal charges." Marcus stepped in front of his son protectively. "We found proof," he said. "The test confirms it. Your patient has Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome." Dr. Carter handed the results to Rebecca. "He's right. These markers are definitive. Your father has the same condition that killed Elijah's mother." Rebecca studied the printout, her expression unreadable. "Dr. Spencer, what do you make of this?" The chief physician barely glanced at the results. "This test was conducted improperly without authorization by unqualified personnel. The results are contaminated and unreliable." She turned to the guards. "Escort these 3 out immediately." They are no longer welcome in this hospital." "Wait, Rebecca," said her voice sharp with authority. "You haven't even properly examined the results. Miss Harrington, doctor," Spencer said with forced patience. "I understand you're desperate for answers, but we cannot rely on rogue testing performed by a resident who's clearly been influenced by outside parties." Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Outside parties? You mean a child who recognized something 15 specialists missed? A child with no medical training?" "Doctor," Spencer countered, "this is not how medicine works. We follow protocols, peer-reviewed research, established science." "My mother's research was peer-reviewed," Elijah interjected. "It was suppressed, not disproven." Rebecca turned to him. "What do you mean, suppressed?" "We found security footage," Dr. Carter explained, producing the flash drive. "From Harrington Pharmaceuticals. It shows company executives removing Dr. Johnson's research the day before her dismissal." Rebecca took the drive, her expression hardening. "Show me." They moved to a computer terminal where Dr. Carter played the damning footage. Rebecca watched in silence as Whitman and his associate systematically removed all traces of Amara's research. When the video ended, she turned to Dr. Spencer. "This changes things." "It changes nothing about the medical facts," Dr. Spencer insisted. "The current treatment plan is based on sound medical principles." "The principles that have my father on the brink of death," Rebecca challenged. Just then her phone rang. After a brief conversation, her face paled. "He's crashing again. They don't think he'll survive this one." The group rushed back to Harrington's suite, where the monitors showed his vital signs failing rapidly. The specialists worked frantically, but their expressions told the story they were losing him. Rebecca watched her composed facade crumbling as she witnessed her father's life slipping away. After a moment of private deliberation, she made a decision that would change everything. "Stop," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Everyone stop what you're doing." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to her in shock. "Miss Harrington, we need to continue treatment," one doctor protested. "Your current treatment is killing him," Rebecca said flatly. "As of this moment, Elijah Johnson is appointed as a special consultant on my father's case. His treatment recommendations will be implemented immediately." The specialists erupted in protests, but Rebecca silenced them with a raised hand. "My father has given me medical power of attorney. This is my decision, and it's final." She turned to Elijah. "Tell them what to do." Do you think Rebecca made the right choice, trusting Elijah over the specialists? Type 1 in the comments if you believe expertise should be recognized regardless of age or background, or 2 if you think formal credentials should always take precedence. Like and subscribe if you've ever had to make a difficult decision when the experts were getting it wrong. As Elijah prepares to implement his treatment plan, what new obstacles will emerge? And will the hospital staff follow the orders of a 13-year-old boy when a billionaire's life hangs in the balance? The atmosphere in Harrington's private suite crackled with tension as the specialists processed Rebecca's announcement. Dr. Spencer was the first to recover from her shock. "This is completely unacceptable," she declared. "We cannot allow an unqualified child to dictate medical treatment for a critical patient." "My father is dying under your care," Rebecca replied coldly. "You've had your chance. Now we try something else." She turned to Elijah. "What do we need to do?" The boy stepped forward, remarkably composed, despite the hostility surrounding him. "First, we need to discontinue all current immunosuppressants and antibiotics. They're masking the symptoms while allowing the underlying pathology to progress." He turned to Dr. Carter. "We need to begin plasmapheresis immediately to remove the circulating autoantibodies." "This is madness," a silver-haired cardiologist exclaimed. "We can't just stop all treatment based on a child's whim." "It's not a whim," Elijah countered. "It's based on my mother's research on 7 documented cases. The current treatments are targeting secondary inflammation, while the primary autoantibody cascade continues unchecked." Rebecca nodded to the nursing staff. "Please follow these instructions. Discontinue the current medication protocol and prepare for plasmapheresis." The head nurse looked uncertainly between Rebecca and the specialists. "Miss Harrington, this is highly irregular. Perhaps we should consult with hospital administration. My father owns this hospital, Rebecca said flatly. I am the administration in this situation. Please proceed. As the nurses began adjusting Harrington's treatment, several of the specialists made their positions clear. I cannot in good conscience participate in this, declared the cardiologist, removing his white coat. This violates every principle of evidence-based medicine. I'm with Dr. Lieberman, added another specialist. This is malpractice, plain and simple. I won't be part of it. By the time the plasmapheresis was being set up, 5 specialists had walked out, leaving the room divided between those willing to follow Rebecca's directives and those who remained only to document what they clearly expected to be a fatal mistake. Dr. Carter worked alongside the remaining medical staff, following Elijah's instructions with growing respect for the boy's knowledge. The plasmapheresis will buy us time, Elijah explained. But to treat the underlying condition, we need to synthesize a compound from my mother's research. What compound? Dr. Carter asked. Mom called it AJ2749, Elijah said, pulling out his mother's journal. It's a specialized monoclonal antibody that targets the specific autoantibodies causing the cascade. Harrington Pharmaceuticals was developing it before they terminated her research. Rebecca looked up sharply. My father's company was developing this treatment. Then we must have it in our labs somewhere. They abandoned it, Marcus explained. Deemed it unprofitable because the condition is so rare. Can we synthesize it here? Rebecca asked. Dr. Carter reviewed the formula in Amara's journal. Theoretically, yes. The hospital has an advanced research lab, but it would take time we don't have, and I'm not sure we have all the necessary equipment. We have to try, Elijah insisted. It's his only chance. Rebecca made a quick call. I'm authorizing emergency access to the research laboratory. Use whatever resources you need. As Elijah and Dr. Carter prepared to head to the lab, 2 men in suits entered the room. Miss Harrington, said the older one, I'm Jeffrey Williams, Hospital Legal Counsel. We need to speak with you immediately regarding this unorthodox situation. My father is dying, Mr. Williams. Whatever legal concerns you have can wait. The lawyer's expression remained impassive. I'm afraid not. You're authorizing experimental treatment developed by an unaccredited researcher implemented by a 13-year-old child with no medical training. The liability issues are enormous. I'll sign whatever waivers you need, Rebecca said dismissively. Now please step aside. Time is critical. Williams blocked their path. It's not that simple. The hospital board has convened an emergency session. They're moving to temporarily suspend your medical power of attorney on grounds of emotional distress affecting your judgment. Rebecca's face flushed with anger. My father built this hospital. He pays your salary. And you're trying to block me from saving his life. We're trying to protect him, and you, from a potentially disastrous decision, Williams countered. The board has voted. Security will ensure that standard treatment protocols are maintained until a judge can review the situation. Marcus stepped forward. My son and Dr. Carter need to get to that lab. Now. Williams shook his head. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, but you and your son are no longer authorized to be in this wing. Security will escort you out. As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared at the door. Marcus recognized them as colleagues he'd worked alongside for years. Their expressions were apologetic but firm. Rebecca turned to Dr. Carter. Go with Elijah to the lab. Start synthesizing the compound. I'll deal with the legal issues. As Dr. Carter and Elijah slipped out, Williams continued his objections. Miss Harrington, you need to understand the gravity of this situation. If your father dies under this unauthorized treatment protocol, the legal consequences will be severe. And if he dies because we did nothing different. What then? Rebecca challenged. You've seen the evidence. The current treatment is failing. We have nothing to lose by trying. Meanwhile, Elijah and Dr. Carter reached the research laboratory where they immediately began the complex process of synthesizing AJ2749. This will take at least 4 hours, Dr. Carter said, studying the formula. Does your father have that long? Elijah's face was grim. I don't know. But it's his only chance. They worked with focused intensity, Elijah directing the process with remarkable precision for someone his age. His knowledge of his mother's research was comprehensive, down to the specific temperature requirements and centrifuge settings. As they neared the halfway point in the synthesis, the laboratory door burst open. Hospital security entered accompanied by Richard Whitman himself. "This unauthorized experiment ends now," Whitman declared. "Dr. Carter, you're suspended pending review, and you," he pointed at. "Elijah, need to leave immediately." "You can't stop us," Elijah said, continuing his work. "Mr. Harrington will die without this treatment." "That's a medical decision for qualified professionals to make," Whitman replied coldly. "Not a child playing scientist." Dr. Carter positioned himself between Whitman and their work. "We have Miss A.I.E.T. Harrington's authorization. The synthesis is already underway. Miss Harrington's authority has been temporarily suspended by the board," Whitman explained with a thin smile. "And as Chief Operating Officer of both the hospital and Harrington Pharmaceuticals, I'm shutting this down." As the security guards moved to remove them from the lab, Dr. Carter noticed something on the security monitor. The camera was focused on their workspace, recording everything they were doing. "You're documenting our process," he realized aloud. "You want to see how we're synthesizing AJ2749. Whitman's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "That's absurd. We're documenting unauthorized access for legal purposes." "No," Elijah said slowly, the pieces falling into place. "You want the formula. You always have. That's why you took Mom's research. Not to suppress it, but to control it." "Be careful, young man," Whitman warned. "That sounds dangerously like slander." Marcus appeared in the doorway, having slipped away from the confrontation in Harrington's suite. "Let them finish," he said to Whitman, "or I release the security footage of you stealing Amara's research to every news outlet in the country." "That footage proves nothing," Whitman scoffed. "What it proves," Marcus countered, "is that you knew about Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome 3 years ago. You knew Dr. Johnson's treatment worked. And you let her die from the very condition she could have cured. He took a step closer, and now you're willing to let your boss die too, rather than admit you were wrong." The laboratory fell silent as Whitman considered his options. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the hospital. "Code Blue Private Suite 1. Code Blue Private Suite 1. Harrington was crashing again. In the momentary distraction, Dr. Carter grabbed the partially synthesized compound. "It's not complete, but it might buy us time," he said to Elijah. "We have to try." They rushed from the laboratory, racing against time to reach Harrington before it was too late. Behind them, Whitman shouted for security to stop them, but Marcus blocked the doorway. "You'll have to go through me first," he said quietly. In the corridor, Elijah and Dr. Carter ran toward Harrington's suite, the precious vial clutched carefully in the doctor's hand. As they rounded the final corner, they found their path blocked by a line of security guards stationed outside Harrington's door. "No one enters without board authorization," the lead guard announced. "Direct orders." Behind them, monitors beeped urgently, signaling Harrington's deteriorating condition. They had the treatment that could save him, but no way to deliver it. Then, from inside the suite, they heard Rebecca's voice raised in desperate command. "Let them in. For God's sake, let them in. My father is dying." Rebecca Harrington stood in the doorway of her father's suite, her elegant composure shattered by desperation. Behind her, the monitors tracked Maxwell Harrington's failing heart, each erratic beep a countdown to the inevitable. "Let them through," she demanded, her voice cracking. "My father is dying. This is his last chance." The security guards shifted uncomfortably, caught between contradictory orders. Dr. Spencer stepped forward, her authority radiating like a force field. "Miss Harrington, the board has temporarily suspended your decision-making authority for good reason. This untested treatment could kill your father instantly." "He's dying anyway," Rebecca cried. "What difference does it make if we try something new?" Dr. Spencer turned to the guards. "No one unauthorized enters this room. That's final." Elijah clutched the vial of partially synthesized AJ2749, his young face set with determination. "This treatment is based on documented research." My mother developed it before she died of the exact same condition. Please just let us try." "Your mother's research was discredited," Dr. Spencer said dismissively. "We can't risk a billionaire's life on unproven theories." "You mean you can't risk your reputation?" Dr. Carter shot back. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? If he dies under your care, it's a tragedy. If he recovers under Elijah's treatment, it's your humiliation." The confrontation had drawn attention. Hospital staff gathered at a distance watching the drama unfold. Among them were nurses, technicians, and orderlies, many of them people of color who had witnessed similar scenes of dismissal and disrespect throughout their careers. Marcus pushed through the crowd, joining his son and Dr. Carter. "What's happening? They won't let us," Elijah explained, his voice tight with frustration. "Mr. Harrington's crashing, and they still won't listen." Marcus turned to the assembled staff. "Many of you knew my wife, Dr. Amara Johnson. She was brilliant, dedicated, and she was silenced because her ideas challenged the status quo. Now her son has the chance to complete her work to save a life using her research. But once again, those in power would rather let someone die than admit a black woman and her son might know something they don't." His words resonated through the corridor. Several staff members exchanged glances, years of similar experiences reflected in their eyes. Inside the suite, the monitors beeped more urgently. "BP dropping," called a nurse. "We're losing him." Richard Whitman arrived slightly out of breath. "What's the status?" he asked Dr. Spencer. "Maintaining standard protocol," she replied. "We've blocked the unauthorized treatment attempt." Good Whitman nodded. "We can't have untested compounds administered by unqualified personnel." As they spoke, a young nurse slipped out of the room. She approached Elijah and whispered, "He's got minutes at best. All his major organs are shutting down." Elijah looked at the vial in his hand. This could save him. Even incomplete, it might buy enough time to finish the full synthesis. The nurse hesitated, then said quietly, "The back entrance is unguarded. I'll distract them." Before anyone could react, she hurried back to the main doors and called out Dr. Spencer. "His oxygen levels are critical." As the medical team's attention turned to the new crisis, the nurse discreetly beckoned to Elijah and Dr. Carter, pointing toward a service entrance at the far end of the suite. Marcus nodded to them. "Go. I'll create a diversion if needed." As Elijah and Dr. Carter slipped toward the back entrance, Whitman noticed their movement. "Stop them," he ordered the guards. "They're trying to circumvent the order." Before the guards could respond, Marcus placed himself between them and his son. "You'll have to go through me first," he said quietly. It was Rebecca who made the decisive move. Breaking free from the doctors trying to console her, she physically placed herself between the guards and Elijah. "This is still my father's hospital," she declared, "and I am still his daughter. If you want to stop them, you'll have to physically remove me first." She turned to the gathered hospital staff. "All of you are witnesses. My father is dying. The current treatments have failed. I am explicitly authorizing this alternative treatment. If any of you interfere, you're acting against the expressed wishes of the Harrington family." The authority in her voice gave everyone pause. Dr. Spencer seized the opportunity to present one final argument. "Miss Harrington, I understand your desperation, but using an unproven treatment created by a child is the definition of medical malpractice. The liability alone would be catastrophic for the hospital." "My father will be dead in minutes," Rebecca countered. "How much more catastrophic can it get?" Elijah stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension. "It's not unproven. I found my mother's complete research in encrypted files on her old laptop. She documented successful treatment in 5 out of 7 cases. The only reason it wasn't published is because her research was stolen before she could complete it." He turned to Whitman. "You took her work and buried it. Why? Was it because the treatment wouldn't be profitable enough? Or because you couldn't stand that a black woman had developed something you couldn't?" Whitman's face darkened. "That's enough. Security, remove this boy from the premises immediately. If his father interferes, arrest him for conspiracy to commit assault on Mr. Harrington." The security guards hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with these orders. Marcus recognized their dilemma. These were men he'd worked alongside for years now, being asked to forcibly remove a child trying to save a life. Dr. Carter chose this moment to make his stand. "I've reviewed the research," he announced loudly. "As a licensed physician, I am professionally certifying that this treatment has merit. I believe it represents Mr. Pite. This is Mr. Pite too. Harrington's best chance for survival, and I am willing to administer it and accept full responsibility for the outcome." He looked around at his colleagues. "Anyone who wants to be on the right side of this decision both medically and ethically should stand with me now." The corridor fell silent as everyone absorbed his words. Then slowly one of the younger specialists stepped forward. "I've been questioning our approach from the beginning," she admitted. "The patterns don't fit any known condition in the literature. I'm willing to try something new." Another doctor joined them, then a nurse, then several more staff members. The division in the room became physical, with those willing to try Elijah's treatment on one side and those adhering to Dr. Spencer's authority on the other. News of the dramatic standoff had spread throughout the hospital. Journalists who had been camped outside covering the billionaire's illness began filming through the windows, capturing the confrontation. Whitman noticed the cameras and faltered, suddenly aware that his actions were being documented. Inside Harrington's room, the monitors showed his condition deteriorating rapidly. "He's in multi-organ failure called a nurse. We've got maybe 2 minutes before brain damage begins." Rebecca made her final decision. "Let them through," she commanded, her voice allowing no disagreement. "Now." The security guard stepped aside, responding to the authority in her voice. Elijah and Dr. Carter rushed to Harrington's bedside, where Dr. Carter quickly prepared the injection. "This isn't the complete formula," he warned. "It might not work." "It's his only chance," Elijah replied. "Mom would want us to try." As Dr. Carter administered the partially synthesized AJ2749, the room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the monitors, every ear attuned to the erratic beeping that tracked Harrington's failing heart. The treatment entered his system, and for several long moments nothing changed. Then, almost imperceptibly, his oxygen saturation increased by 1%. "It's something," Dr. Carter whispered. "We need to start synthesizing the complete compound immediately. This will only buy us a few hours at most." Rebecca turned to the gathered staff. "Anyone who wants to help, follow Dr. Carter to the lab. Anyone who doesn't, please, step aside." The room divided again, with most of the younger staff following Dr. Carter, while Dr. Carter, Spencer, and several senior specialists remained behind, their expressions a mix of skepticism and concern. As they rushed toward the laboratory, Elijah caught his father's eye. Marcus smiled with pride at his son, the boy who refused to be silenced. Together with their unlikely allies, they raced against time to complete the synthesis that might save not just Maxwell Harrington, but vindicate Amara Johnson's legacy as well. Dawn broke over Chicago, pale light filtering through the windows of Harrington's private suite. Inside, the only sounds were the soft, steady beeping of monitors and the occasional rustle as a nurse checked vital signs. Hours had passed since they had administered the complete synthesis of AJ2749, and Maxwell Harrington remained unconscious, his condition neither improving nor worsening. Elijah sat beside his father in the corner, exhausted but vigilant. They had done everything possible, following his mother's research to the letter. Now all they could do was wait. Rebecca Harrington stood by her father's bedside, her composed facade beginning to crack as minutes stretched into hours with no significant change. "Shouldn't we see some improvement by now?" she asked Dr. Carter, who was reviewing the latest lab results. "These processes take time," he explained gently. "The compound is designed to interrupt the autoantibody cascade and allow the body's natural healing to begin. It's not an instant cure." Outside, the suite hospital administrators gathered in hushed consultation. Dr. Spencer prepared a statement, her expression grim as she drafted language about unauthorized intervention and regrettable outcomes. The hospital's public relations team waited nearby, ready to manage the inevitable media storm when Maxwell Harrington, one of the world's wealthiest men, died under controversial circumstances. Richard Whitman paced the hallway, his normally confident demeanor replaced by barely concealed panic. His career, perhaps even his freedom, hinged on what happened in that room. Just after 9 in the morning, a slight change registered on the monitors. Harrington's blood pressure increased by 5 points. His oxygen saturation improved by 3%. Small changes, but in the right direction. Dr. Carter leaned forward, studying the readouts with cautious optimism. "Something's happening," he murmured. Over the next hour, the improvements continued, small but consistent. Color returned to Harrington's pale features. His breathing deepened and stabilized. By noon, the change was unmistakable. Maxwell Harrington was getting better. As word spread through the hospital, administrators who had been preparing for the worst now scrambled to position themselves favorably. Dr. Spencer, who had been the most vocal opponent of Elijah's treatment, now spoke of collaborative approaches and integrative medicine. Whitman attempted to enter the suite, but was blocked by Marcus, who stood guard at the door like a sentinel. "Mr. Harrington isn't receiving visitors at this time," he said, his voice polite but firm. "Miss Harrington's orders." Inside, the first real milestone came shortly after 2 in the afternoon. Harrington's eyelids fluttered, then opened. Confusion gave way to recognition as he focused on his daughter's face. "Becca." His voice was weak, but clear. "What happened?" Rebecca grasped his hand, tears flowing freely now. "You were very sick, Dad. The doctors couldn't help you." She gestured toward Elijah, who watched shyly from the corner. "This young man saved your life." Harrington's gaze shifted to the boy, his expression questioning. Before he could speak, hospital administrators and board members burst into the room led by Jeffrey Williams. "Mr. Harrington, thank God you're awake. The medical team has been working around the clock to pull you through this crisis." Williams shot a warning glance at Rebecca, clearly attempting to control the narrative. Rebecca stood, her posture rigid with anger. "That's not true, Dad. Your regular doctors had given up. They said you were terminal. It was Elijah Johnson who identified your condition and developed the treatment that saved you." Harrington looked confused. "Johnson, as in doctor." Amara Johnson's son, Rebecca, confirmed. "The researcher who worked for Harrington Pharmaceuticals 3 years ago." Recognition flickered in Harrington's eyes. He studied Elijah with new interest. "Dr. Enda V. Johnson. I remember her. Brilliant woman. Whitman told me she was falsifying data, that her research was fundamentally flawed." Marcus stepped forward. "That was a lie, sir. My wife's research was legitimate. She was developing a treatment for Gilchrist-Nakamura syndrome, the same condition that almost killed you. Whitman suppressed her work after she questioned some of the company's testing procedures." Harrington's expression hardened. "Is this true, Williams?" The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, this is a complex situation. Perhaps we should discuss this when you're stronger." "I asked if it's true." Harrington insisted, his voice stronger now. "Did Whitman lie about Dr. Johnson's research?" Williams hesitated too long. Rebecca produced her tablet, playing the security footage they had discovered. "This was recorded the day before Mom was fired." Elijah explained as they watched Whitman and his associates systematically removing files from Amara's laboratory. "They took everything, then claimed she had no evidence to support her findings." Harrington watched the footage in silence, his expression darkening with each passing second. When it ended, he looked up at his daughter. "Where is Whitman now?" "Probably calling his lawyer," Marcus said. "Once it became clear you were recovering, he disappeared." Harrington was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he had learned. Finally, he turned to Elijah. "You saved my life using your mother's research. Research that my company suppressed. Research that might have saved her too if she'd had access to it." His voice cracked slightly on the last words. "I can never undo that wrong. But I can try to make amends." In the days that followed, Harrington's recovery progressed rapidly. The effectiveness of AJ-2749 was undeniable, his blood work showing complete reversal of the autoimmune cascade that had nearly killed him. As his strength returned, so did his determination to right the wrongs that had been committed in his name. Richard Whitman was terminated and faced criminal charges for corporate espionage when investigation revealed he had been selling proprietary research to competitors. Dr. Spencer and several other specialists, who had most vehemently opposed Elijah's treatment, submitted their resignations rather than face review. 1 month after his near-death experience, Harrington called Marcus and Elijah to his office. He had aged during his illness, but his eyes were clear and focused. "I've been thinking about how to honor Dr. Johnson's legacy," he began. "And I'd like to offer you something, Elijah." He slid a folder across the desk. "A full scholarship to any university you choose when you're ready. And a position at Harrington Pharmaceuticals to continue your mother's research." Elijah looked at the folder, but didn't take it. "Thank you, sir. But I have a condition." Harrington raised an eyebrow. "A condition?" "Full acknowledgement of my mother's contributions," Elijah said firmly, "and the company's role in her death. I want the truth to be public, not hidden behind corporate settlements and NDAs." Marcus placed a supportive hand on his son's shoulder, pride evident in his face. Harrington studied them both, then nodded slowly. "You're right. No more hiding." He extended his hand. "You have my word." 6 months later, the Amara Johnson Research Wing opened at Harrington Memorial Hospital. The dedication ceremony drew medical professionals from around the world, many of whom had dismissed her work years earlier. Now they came to study her methods, humbled by the results they couldn't deny. Marcus was appointed head of hospital security with expanded responsibilities and a significantly increased salary. Dr. Carter became the youngest department head in the hospital's history, leading a diverse team focused on rare autoimmune disorders. But the most profound transformation was in the hospital's culture. Harrington implemented new company policies specifically designed to combat institutional racism in medical research. Diverse voices were not just included, but actively sought out. Ideas were evaluated on merit rather than the credentials or background of those presenting them. The treatment Elijah had developed using his mother's research went on to save thousands of lives, including many patients who couldn't afford specialized care. Harrington Pharmaceuticals, once driven purely by profit, now balanced commercial interests with genuine humanitarian concerns. 1 year after his brush with death, Maxwell Harrington attended the unveiling of Amara Johnson's portrait in the research wing bearing her name. The painting showed her as she had been in life: brilliant, determined, compassionate. Beside him stood Marcus and Elijah, now 14 and already taking advanced courses in biochemistry and immunology. As the crowd dispersed after the ceremony, Elijah lingered before his mother's portrait. "They see us now, Mom," he whispered. "They finally see us." Have you ever had your voice silenced only to be vindicated later? Share your story in the comments. Did Elijah's journey inspire you to stand firm in what you know to be true, even when no one believes you? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of underdogs who change the world against all odds. Remember, sometimes the most important voices are the ones society tries hardest to silence. Thank you for watching, and may you always find the courage to speak your truth, even when the whole world is telling you to be quiet. This story illustrates how systemic bias in prestigious institutions can silence vital voices and cost lives. Elijah and his father faced dismissal not because their information was wrong, but because of who they were: a black security guard and his son challenging medical authorities. True expertise isn't defined by credentials alone, but by knowledge, regardless of its source. When we automatically dismiss voices from unexpected places, we lose potentially life-saving insights. The medical establishment's racist and classist assumptions nearly cost Harrington his life, just as they had cost Amara hers years earlier. The transformation came not just in saving one life, but in restructuring an entire system to prevent such dismissals in the future. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what experts miss, precisely because they're not constrained by institutional thinking. Elijah's persistence, despite continuous rejection, demonstrates that truth has power beyond credentials. His journey reminds us that justice often requires both speaking truth to power and finding allies brave enough to listen. In the end, the most powerful change wasn't the medical breakthrough, but the institutional acknowledgement that valuable contributions can come from anywhere, that seeing people as they truly are, rather than through the lens of bias, saves lives. Have you ever been dismissed or underestimated because of who you are rather than what you know? Or have you witnessed someone being ignored despite having valuable insights? Share your experience in the comments below. Did Elijah's prayers determination to honor his mother's legacy by saving her research resonate with how you've fought to be heard in your own life? Hit the like button if you believe expertise should be recognized regardless of age, race, or .gats background. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about overcoming discrimination and making a difference against overwhelming odds. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message about standing firm in their truth, even when facing powerful opposition, share this video with them today. Thank you for listening with an open heart, and may you always have the courage to speak up when it matters most, because your voice, your knowledge, and your perspective might be exactly what the world needs.